Another edition of NAMI at Home Live, simulcast on both Facebook and YouTube and wherever fine NAMI at Home live streams are sold. It's not even sold, it's free. Speaking of free, here's what we ask. If you go to NAMI Tennessee's website, which is namitn.org, you can sign up for our email list, and that's where we tell you everything that is going on with NAMI Tennessee. Things like the NAMI at Home Tennessee series live, great guests that we have, things like our gala, our walk, and of course, important legislative advocacy to help us help people with mental illness and their families live better lives. So longtime viewers of the show have we've heard this 1,000 times, get to the guest, and you got to give the people what they want. We are super excited to have Antwon. Antwon, thank you so much for being here. Please tell the folks who you are.
So, hey everybody, my name is Antwon Lindsey. I'm an author and filmmaker, originally born and raised in Miami, Florida, currently living in Southwest Florida, which is the Naples, Fort Myers, Tampa area. So I have a really awesome creation called Hush, Help Us Say Help, which is a documentary on Black mental health that I'm so thrilled and excited to be able to share with you all as we finish post-production and get ready for our screening tour coming up this fall. So again, thank you for having me, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity and platform.
Well, we are super grateful that you were available and agreed to do this. So once again, thank you, thank you. Let's jump into the questions. The first question, it's kind of right out of the gate, but why create a documentary about mental illness in Black American communities?
So the importance of creating this documentary, man, it goes back to just a personal level for myself, right? So back in 2012, I had a cousin who died by suicide during my first year of college. And what it did to me, it kind of struck me as something, to really understand or try to figure out and understand why would he do such a thing, right? And as I went through my own journey of going through college and being pretty much the only Black person in many of my classes that for undergraduate, a lot of stress was put on me, and I saw a lot of my friends going through things, and then it really got me to a point of just kind of wondering, why do we suffer as Black Americans, in general, and was it I believe it was early 2020. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I say, man, I've had this idea about a documentary on Black mental health, and I kind of want to go ahead and create something for us so that we can be able to understand why is it that we suffer as a community and what we can do about it. And in 2020, when he said, hey man, I support you, let's do it, I went ahead and just decided to do that. And again, in addition to that, it stemmed from me creating a book back in 2017 when I was 24 years old called Reticent, A Somber Soul in Despair, which is about a young Black boy growing up in a disenfranchised inner city community and dealing with an undiagnosed mental health disorder. And, being able to, gain what we would consider success from people being able to like it and enjoy it, it just kind of really pushed me into this realm of understanding, what is mental health in Black America and why don't we talk about it? So the documentary itself, again, like I said, is very important because it's something that's going to educate, entertain, as well as empower individuals to prioritize mental health within the Black community.
I know you started to cover this. It sounds like the inspiration for the film was the tragedy of the suicide that you experienced in your own life, and then you got. I don't want to say you were sort of hanging out with the right people. You met the right people, and you had this idea, and it sounds like they helped you push it forward. So I know that's sort of like the little TikTok version of it, right? But if we go a little deeper, I just want to know a little more about A38 Films and how the film came together. And listen, I kind of want to know where A38s came from. Like, why is the title of the film production company A38? Let's start there, and then why did the documentary, or how, more details on how the documentary came together.
Yeah, for sure. So A38 Films. So A38 Films, which most people say, but it's A38 Films to me. A38 Films, the A stands for me, my dad, my brother, my son. All of our names begin with A, right? It's the first letter of the alphabet, right? So it's symbolic for us, right? And then 3 is what people would consider the Trinity, right? The sun, moon, stars, or the earth, wind, fire, or perhaps the Son, Father, and the Spirit. So I looked at that as the combination of who we are, and in addition to that, it's my dad, me, my son, right? So being able to really being able to embrace that aspect of us, and then the 8 is the infinity, right? So that 8 is infinite. Our potential is infinite in this lifetime that we do get to live in. And so what I kind of wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that the company stood for something which was very personal to me and also encouraging to others. So when I do tell the story of how we got the name, they can also see that it's the people that are around us that cultivate who we become. In addition to that, if we live our lives in such a limitless way, in a limitless capacity, we can change the world. And that's why that infinity is there. And so to answer the second half of the question is, how did this film come together? The film came together, as I mentioned earlier, just really after, going through my own struggles with mental health. So being in college, not only was I, at a predominantly white institution where I was the only black student in class, but I grew up in a disenfranchised community as well. So low income community, a lot of unsolicited violence, things like that. So things that I've seen growing up, and a lot of different things that I've witnessed. So taking that to this new experience of trying to get out of the environment and being able to thrive there, and then also being at college and taking on different leadership roles, it was very overwhelming. Because one of the many things that people don't realize is that even though a student that comes from a disenfranchised community goes to college, they're still half and half. So half of my life is still being spent on the weekends going back home, witnessing and experiencing and dealing with things that are going on back there because my family is still there. So there's this illusion that because you go to college, your life is completely changed. But I was dealing with a lot of things back home as well. So I had to kind of figure out what I can do. And I ended up going to therapy. And the first therapist I had, it didn't really work out. To be honest, it was a white guy who just didn't quite connect with me. And I'm like, yo, we got to change this. I need somebody to really be in here to talk to me that can understand what I'm going through. And then the second therapist was a wonderful woman who came in, and she had a lot of empathy, didn't really understand the true experience of what I was going through. But she gave me some good pointers. And after that, I kind of just, again, continued to move throughout my space of life. And 2020, when the pandemic came about, we had just finished my second film, which is called Color of Love. We did a 5-city screening tour. It was our second film, and then we did a tour, which I thought was pretty amazing. And we did a tour. And again, like I said, talked to my buddy. His name is Stefano Buchanan. And I was having a conversation with him like, man, I know we're writing the script and preparing for this other film, but I really think Hush is it, man. Because when we look around, we see so many people suffering and we see so many people going through things, and even we go through things. So how about we take a deep dive into what is, mental health in the Black community? And again, some other part of the inspiration is that book, Reticent, A Summer Soul in Despair. My very first film was Reticent Because Black Boys Can't Cry, which was an adaptation of my first book, right? So we did that, and I remember we did that film. The turnaround time was crazy. I had the idea in October. We did the film. We put out a casting call in November. We didn't even have a script. We just put out a casting call, and then came around December, and I always tell this particular part of the story. We had the script reading on December 12th, and on December 11th, I was at a quinceañera till about 11 o'clock, and I had to get home and write the script before we had the script reading at 1 p.m. because I still hadn't wrote the script. So we get to the script reading, and everybody's like, "Oh man, I love it. This is amazing." And we having discussion. We spent like 2 hours in there talking about the script. And once we did that, January we shot the film. February we finished it, went into post. March we had the very first film screening for Reticent, at Berry University, and over 200 people. Well, we had 2 screenings in one day, but the second screening, over 200 people came, and it was standing room only. And I looked back around, I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, people really came out here to come and see this film that I created, and the discussions and the, folks crying and being able to share, their experience. It really sparked my mind into thinking, man, like, so many people in here can connect to this film and want to talk about it, but don't have the space. So then when I, again, fast forward, when I had that conversation with Stefano, it was like, that experience of doing a tour with Color of Love and seeing people enjoy that creative aspect of me. But I'm like, I want to get back to that mental health piece, because when we did Reticent, I saw so many people, it's like they were looking for a space to have a voice and to speak. So I'm like, yo, I think we gotta do Hush. And he said, hey man, if you want to do it, let's do it. So 2020, we started Hush. We did the casting in 2020 for the film. Again, the pandemic kind of slowed things down, which I'm very grateful that we were able to have a moment to sit back and really, for everybody to kind of think about what was going on in our lives, even though it was such a moment where people wish it didn't happen. But for me, I kind of took it as an opportunity to say, you know what, let me evaluate my own life. And then that even inspired me to think about how I wanted to tell the story for the film. What were the different elements that I wanted to add into the film to make sure that when people watch this film, it isn't just about, Black mental health, but it's about the humanity of all people and the transformation of people from their suffering to what we consider their healing. And that was a really huge aspect of the inspiration of the film. Again, like I said, my personal experiences, seeing people around me go through things, and being able to cultivate a story that will really get people to understand the historical context of mental health in America, as well as being able to show and guide people to a future where we can no longer suffer and where we can really actually, love one another and be able to share peace, compassion, and all these other beautiful things with each other.
Antwon, thank you so much. I want to ask, why is there a need to look at mental health from different perspectives? People think to themselves, well, it's mental health. We're all human. So therefore, isn't mental health the same for all cultures? Can you talk on that piece for a moment? Because you understand the necessity, but many people have never even considered looking at mental health from any different perspectives. They think it's sort of a one size fits all deal.
Yeah, I think that right there is one of the key issues, right? When we look at this world and we look at the space that we live in, it's something that many people truly are oblivious to, right? When we think about emotions, yeah, we all can relate to very similar emotions with each other, whether it be anger, sadness. We can relate to that particular emotion, but the experiences are vastly different. So being someone who identifies Black African American, of African American descent or African descent, my experience as a Black man in the world, but more specifically in the micro world of America, is largely different from a lot of people. And I know that when we consider race, and we know the concept of race, was formed from eugenics and all these other different things, and it's a social construct. But if we look at the context of being Black in America and dealing with mental health, one of the things that we have to know is that a lot of people get the misconception that being Black in America started with just slavery, but it didn't just begin with slavery. Before slavery, we had civilizations in Africa that were building, that were thriving, that were doing things. And what happened was, when European colonialists came in and took some of those people for the slave trade and brought them over here, they took the civilization builders, as one of our cast members in the film said, Mr. Matthew Pygott. He said they took the civilization builders, the people who were the very fabric of civilization, and brought them to America and stripped them from their families and stripped them from, they couldn't read, they couldn't write, they couldn't do all these other different things, brutalized and a lot of things that were torturous to people who are Black and African here in America. And then once we have the Emancipation Proclamation, where people are considered freed, we have the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. So let's take a moment and think about that, right? Your family for generations have been were taken from a land, brought to a new land. Couldn't read, couldn't write. It was literally illegal for you to do all of those things. And then, okay, well, we'll free you all. But then we have black codes. We have, 13th, 14th Amendment, all of these other different restrictions on your humanity, on who you can be as a living being, what you can do, what you can say, how you can think, how you can feel. We don't realize that it's generational. It's traumatic. It's horrifying to believe that you as a human being, you have to walk in this existence as if you aren't who you are. And then what that does to generations, right? So from one generation to the next, well, we can't do this, so I'm telling you to do this as well, because I don't want you to maybe perhaps be lynched, or maybe perhaps go to jail or go to prison, or all these other different things. So now you have that intergenerational trauma being passed down from one generation to the next. And even though more opportunities have come about over the years, we still see the intergenerational trauma and the effects of those things from American chattel slavery still present today in Black America, which is a story that many people don't understand. So when we look at communities, or we look at rappers, and we see rappers are, waving guns and showing money and this and that, it's not in the protest of, yes, I want to be violent, but when we think about that violence, where did they learn it from? Because they didn't just do that. It was passed down to them generationally. And when we think about individuals in the community or in the Black community who talk about, things like police brutality, it isn't that it's a myth. It's just the raw emotion of why people feel the way that they feel. And I'm not here to protest whether it's a fact or it's not a fact, but I just want people to understand the meaning or the emotion behind why people do those things. And then when we look at suicide within the Black community, so think about it. For generations, you've been told that you're less than, you're not really a human, or no one really cares about what you got going on. And then in your family structure, that's the same thing. So in slavery, that's what it was. And then you bring it to modern day America. And then and because of the generational trauma that has been passed down, you have a family structure where you don't feel seen, you don't feel heard. So then how do I exist in this world when the world that I call home doesn't seem to love me, and the world that I live in doesn't seem to even know that I exist? And even when I try to create a space of where I want you to know that I exist, there's all of these, barriers and expectations and these stereotypes and stigmas related to my existence. So what does that do to a person's mind? What does that mean for a culture? And when the question talks about, why is it different? It's because when we look on the flip side of that, when we talk about, communities in white America, I'm not white, so I don't particularly know. Yes, we do have alcoholism, we do have sexual abuse, we do have all of these different things. But the key is access to resources, access to mental health resources, to educational resources, to financial resources. All of these different things are vastly different from these two very different communities. And we can look at it from a global perspective as well. They're vastly different. Different cultures have different, belief systems and practices, and why they believe certain things are the way that they need to be, and how they would rather treat people, and this class, this hierarchy of, greatest to least, when in fact, again, we're all human. And if we can really start to see that about each other, maybe, just maybe, we can live a life and we can have a world where folks are really more empathetic and compassionate, and really share love and peace with each other. But it's important to tell this perspective, because this is a perspective that many people for so long have decided to ignore, have decided that it isn't a part of the history that wants to be told. It isn't a part of the structure of why we got here in this film itself. It isn't to say that, we're going to blame people for this and blame people for that. This film is going to highlight the raw data of this is how we got here. This is how Black Americans have been dealing with and coping with and trying to survive instead of being able to thrive as it relates to their mental, physical, and emotional well-being. So that's why this film is essential to, and the story is it needs to be told and needs to be shared. So that way people around the world can see that, yeah, although we may experience the same emotions, we may not understand where the origins of these emotions come from. And if we can get an understanding of that, then maybe we can probably go ahead and change the future for something better.
I thank you so much for that answer and that explanation. I do think many people just simply haven't thought about it. They think about the world from their lens, from their perspective, and they assume that it's the same for everyone. And that kind of thinking has gotten us in trouble historically in America in so many different ways, right? Just in so many different ways. So hopefully that is changing and people start to have a broader view. But I want to move on to the next question. What are some of the challenges around having conversations about mental health in the African American community? Did you struggle finding people to participate? What was that whole process like, getting that on film?
So the film itself, without giving it away, is we just had a conversation yesterday. I had a panel of individuals that watched the rough cut of the film, and we had a discussion about it. So many people will get the assumption that the film is about biographical instances, of people telling their story of dealing with mental health. But this film is vastly educational, entertaining, and empowering, where we utilize individuals who talk about, again, the step by step, the origins, the struggle of mental health. What does it actually look like, the suffering aspect of it, and then what can we do to heal within our communities? And some of the challenges, I would say specifically within the Black community, as far as getting people to seek mental health services, getting people to understand that they should prioritize their mental health services, it's just a general lack of education, a lack of understanding why it is a priority, and as well as trust. And again, it stems back from, again, the American chattel slavery, when trust was lost, not just within the family structure, but within the system of governance and within our country. A lot of people felt as though and feel as though they got to get it by any means and that they're on their own, right? So that's the mentality that we see a lot of people have. And it's this true division of individuals rather than unification, because that lack of trust, that lack of, well, if I go and see a therapist, right, is that therapist going to judge me? Or if I go and see a therapist, will people think I'm crazy? If I go and get medication, will people think I'm crazy? If I talk about my feelings, is anybody going to care, right? So it becomes challenging for many people within the Black community to even go and seek services or want to get help, because those are the underlying things. I can only imagine what my cousin might have been thinking, as he got on medication and felt like, oh, the medication is making me worse, and I don't know if anybody will really be able to understand what I'm going through, because I live in an environment where if you're not tough, if you're not showing how tough you are, then you're prey, right? You're weak and you don't need to exist. And I can only imagine what was going on in his mind to think that he had to live in an environment that we and even just the world that we put that narrative out that if you express your emotions, then you're weak, right? So just imagine what that's like, being someone in the Black community. And the film, again, is called Hush. Help Us Say Help. It's a play on that. The word hush itself is about the silencing of ourselves within the community because of our experiences, right? Generationally, we've had to silence ourselves in order just to survive. So if I'm going to survive, then I'm not going to, I can't go talk to no therapist. I got to hold this in. I got to, I just got to deal with it. And then what we know happens, it turns into that anger, that frustration that gets built up. And then who knows, it just may turn into that hopelessness where a person may decide that the best way for me to deal with this and just for me to go ahead and get up out of here without them even knowing that there is another way. You can talk about it, and there are resources to help you. So those are some of the challenges.
Antwon, thank you so much. Now, I know that you don't want to spoil the movie, so I'm putting like without spoilers. What are some of the takeaways from the interviews and discussions that you learned while filming the documentary?
For myself?
Yeah, yes.
So some of the takeaways that I learned, man, it was just amazing. Again, this is my third film, right? So creating this documentary was an experience, and I want to share this with people just so the way that they understand just how important I thought this conversation was. Last year, I had an opportunity to get to essentially go and get my doctorate for free, and to go and get my doctorate and
Wow.
to be at an institution studying higher education. And I'll never forget this. April 7th, I had to send an email and tell them, well, actually April 6th, my interview was on April 7th for the doctorate program. I sent the email on April 6th and said, hey, I want to go ahead and remove my application. Thank you all for the opportunity. And on April 7th, I began the journey of starting the documentary. And the reason why I did that, because I knew that if I did my doctorate program, I would not be satisfied with my life. I would not be happy. I would continue to suffer, as we would say. And once I started to do the documentary, well, I mean, not started, but really full on take on the responsibility of creating this documentary, it just opened the floodgates to me. And when we started filming back in back in September last year, when we started filming, and we're in the interviews, and again, it's my first time doing something of this nature. I'm just like, wow, like these people are really passionate about the conversation as well, just as I am. In addition to that, I just took away so many different things, so many things that, even within my own family structure, that I was able to bring back and like, hey, let's talk about this, y'all. When this happened, this is how I felt, or have you ever thought about this? And then it also gave a lot of great information about, again, like I said, the historical context of, the origins of people of African descent. In addition to that, what does it actually look like to suffer in the Black community? And then the most important thing, what are the solutions? How can we go about, moving forward to a transformational future where we no longer have to settle for suffering, and we can encourage our family members, our friends, our communities, the world to look at each other with open arms and an open heart and an open mind to transform the world. So those are some of the takeaways that I really got from it. And it's amazing. I can't wait to share it. I really cannot wait to share this film, because I truly know that it's going to change the world, and it's going to really open people's minds to understanding the conversation, not just about Black mental health, but mental health in general. So maybe they may go and say, you know what, let me think about, how this actually affected my family structure, and how we got here. So I'm looking for this to be the keystone to a lot of different things.
Awesome, Antwon. Thank you so much. So we asked you what your takeaways were. What are the takeaways and actions that you hope that viewers will take after watching the documentary?
I want viewers to really look at this film and see the humanity of Black Americans, to see the humanity in individuals who just want to live a life that is judgment free. That want to live a life that is that's safe. That want to live a life that's peaceful, joyful. Whatever definition of success looks like for them. And I want people to be able to understand the origins of how we all suffer, right? And that's another beautiful aspect of the film, is that at a certain point, you're gonna forget. No matter who you are, you're gonna start relating to this film as it relates to mental health. And then I want people to come back and be like, wow, that's it. I just watched a film talking about Black mental health, but there's no difference in the humanity within all of us because we were all humans, right? And although their experience is different, I can empathize and understand why we should go ahead and look at creating a better society, not just for ourselves, but for the future generations. Because again, we are the water to those seeds that are here in the soil, waiting to be, waiting to grow. But if we continue to water the negative things of life, right? Those negative experiences, those negative emotions, those negative things that we don't want to see, we're going to continue to get that. But as long as we start shifting our attention, our focus to watering those good seeds, the peace, the compassion, the empathy, the understanding, right, within one another, and more specifically within ourselves, then and only then can we be able to give that to the rest of the world. So those are the things that I want people to be able to take away from this film, is that it's that the we and us, right? I am because you are, right? Those are the things that I want people to take away from this film as they watch it, and really and get out of that shell of of ignorance, I can say, and really start opening their mind to a conscious perspective of this is what we should be doing to create this better world that we live in.
Thank you, thank you. Now, where can folks from Tennessee, or really all over, but let's stick with Tennessee since it's NAMI at Home Tennessee, right? It's right. It's right in the logo. I don't know which direction it is on the screen, but how can folks watch the film and interact with the filmmakers, interact with you? I know we've. I'll throw the website up there one more time, but let us know.
Yeah, so what we're going to be doing is we will be hosting a multi-city screening tour. One of the stops is Memphis, and so what you can do is you can come on out to the screening. Once we have the screening, we will be putting. Once we have the date solidified in the venue, we're going to be putting out a schedule in July, to so everybody can be able to come out and see just what the film is about, to be a part of the conversation, and not just be a part of the conversation, but be a part of the action, right? So this idea of actionable transformation. How do we actually go about doing this within our communities, within ourselves, within our families, and really start pouring resources into the places where the resources don't exist? So it's going to be a wonderful experience. Again, I'm cultivating this experience to make sure that when we all get there, we know, it's not about, the negative things that have occurred or that currently occur. We're going to acknowledge and accept and embrace those things. But how do we transform it? How do we transform it so that way we're not just sitting in the dark, but we're bringing light to the dark and shining it so that way we all can be able to live fruitful and wonderful lives.
Antwon, thank you so much for being here. This is my favorite part of the show. It's where I always say final thoughts. It's essentially where you get to ask yourself any question that you want and answer it. But I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to tell the viewers and the listeners anything that I may have missed. I mean, what are your final thoughts? What do you want everybody watching to know?
I want everybody to know that I'm going to change the world. With this film, with what I do within my life, I'm going to change the world. And I want you all to know that you can do it too. We are limitless. There is no limit to our potential. There is no sky, no ceiling, no anything. We can do anything that we desire to do. And it's something that we should do, for our own existence. We're only here for a limited amount of time. So why live our lives in such a way where we're always frustrating ourselves about what we can't do instead of focusing on what we can do and taking that up and even a notch? Because this is only the beginning for all of us. The world that we live in now is going to be far greater than what we can ever imagine. And I'm going to be one of those people that's going to be a part of that. And I would definitely have faith that you all will be as well.
Antwon, once again, thank you so much. Everybody, the website to learn more and to find the date for Memphis, Tennessee's screening is A38Films.com. Right? Did I say it right this time? A38 Films?
You got it. A38 Films.
Awesome. Yeah, check it out at A38Films.com. And of course, we will try to drop a note in our email list. Remember, I told you all the cool things that were in the email list? This is going to be one of those things. So join that list at namitn.org. It's absolutely free. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you're probably thinking, you have a YouTube channel? Of course we have a YouTube channel. And you know where we told you about it? Yeah, on the website. Just jump over to namitn.org, sign up for that YouTube channel. Obviously, you probably already follow us on Facebook because that's where you're watching this. I would bet dollars to donuts because I see the stats. Antwon, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, man, I appreciate you for having me. Thank you, NAMI Tennessee.
Thank you. Well, we will see everybody next time on NAMI Tennessee at Home Live.